Okay, chapter 7, flow of food during preparation. All right, first thing we're going to talk about is thawing food. A lot of times I get questions, Chef, what exactly is thawing food? Thawing food means you're going to take something from a frozen state out of the freezer and you're going to defrost it so it's you're able to use it, cook it. All right, so these are the safe methods. All right, a lot of you probably have parents or moms that will take stuff out of the freezer the night before and leave it on the counter overnight. We don't do that. On the outside of the material, the microorganisms can cause all kinds of problems. They multiply in the danger zone, which is 41 to 140. And we got the fat Tom, which we went over in one of the other lectures, which is the situation that lets the bacteria grow. So what will happen is on the outside, that bacteria is growing. On the inside, it's frozen. It's not growing, but you can't stop it from growing on the outside where it gets to the room temperature relatively quickly. All right, so the best way to thaw it is to take it from the freezer and put it directly into the refrigerator and let it sit there until it defrosts. It'll take a lot longer, but if you do it in this manner, it defrosts the proper way, and you don't have to worry about microorganisms as much. You can defrost during the cooking method. So a good example for this is French fries. They come out of the freezer, they're frozen, they're little sticks, and you pop them into the fryer later and you cook them. And they go from a frozen state to a cooked state. You don't have to worry about defrosting them. The next one is in a microwave. Now, here's a couple of guidelines for the microwave. One is you need to, if it's like a stew or something like that, you have to stir it a couple of times to make sure that the inside, because the microwave works from the inside out, to make sure that you're stirring it up so it's all even. And two is if you are defrosting, like let's say it's a hamburger patty, and you're defrosting it so we get to the point where you can cook it, you can't defrost it using the microwave and then let it sit in the refrigerator for 5 hours. You need to finish the process of cooking as soon as you're done microwaving. And again, because microwaves work from the inside out, you're going to have some on the inside that's going to be above the danger zone, and the microorganisms start to multiply. And if you don't cook it right away, you can allow the microorganisms to do that. So you want to cook it completely after you've defrosted it in the microwave. And then the third way is acceptable is under cold running water. Understand that you can't be just sitting in cold water, and it has to, it can't be warm water. I've run into a lot of students who have come to me and said, Chef, I think you're making a mistake. That water over there is cold. You want to defrost it. It should be warm. No, you don't want the warm water for the same reason that I talked about sitting something on the counter and letting it sit there. The warm water will allow the outside microorganisms to start to grow. You want to have cold water, so you're going to defrost it slowly enough where the inside will get defrosted, but the outside will not allow the microorganisms to grow. And the other key part is it has to be running water. You can't just put it in a pan, fill it with cold water, and walk away. The water needs to continuously run, so any of the microorganisms that do start to build up are washed away. All right? Thawing right or wrong. I just got through talking about it should be under cold running water. So I don't care if the water is cold, it's sitting stagnant. It will defrost, but you're letting the microorganisms grow. So no, this is wrong. All right, thawing right or wrong. Well, I'm not crazy about this photo, but it's a meat that is inside a walk-in cooler. So I would say it's correct because you are thawing it slowly in the cooler. All right. Wash raw fruits and vegetables before using them. Okay, so before you cut them, combine ingredients, cooking, serving. Bottom line is fruits and vegetables are grown in fields. Fields have dirt. Dirt has microorganisms in it. Animals go out there and animals go to the bathroom, so there's all kinds of stuff on them. So you want to make sure that every time you have a fresh fruit or vegetable raw, you want to cut it or wash it before you cut it, before you cook it, before you serve it, before you do anything. Because once you cut it, there's microorganisms on the outside of the melon and you cut into it, then you're going to take those microorganisms that are on the outside and you're going to make it go to the inside, and that's the part people are going to eat. If the outside is a rind, you're not going to eat it. I've had people say to me, yeah, but it's on the outside, not the inside. No, you got to be able to cut it without having to worry about the microorganisms going through. And especially with the fruit, melon or something like that, you're not going to cook it before you eat it. So the microorganisms will not be killed off. All right. Batters. All right. So a batter is something that you dip, like let's say fish and chips into. All right. Couple different ways that you can deal with batters. Main thing that you want to understand is batch size. Okay, you want to make a small batch of batter. You don't want to make a bunch of it and let it sit there for hours on end. You want to make a small batch, and you want to store it under 41 degrees, and you want to make them frequently so the microorganisms don't have a chance to multiply. If you're taking, if you're making fish and chips, you're making a batter, then you're going to dip your raw cod into, and then you're going to put it in the fryer later. Once you dip the raw cod in there, some of those microorganisms from the cod are going to get into your batter, and they're going to start to multiply. So if you hold it for 3-4 hours, like we talked about in the with the microorganisms, 2 become 4 every 20 minutes, and then those 4 become 8, and then 20 minutes later, those 8 become 16, and that's how they multiply. So if you put it in there and let it sit for 3 hours, well, then what's going to happen is you're going to have the microorganisms having a party and reproducing. Discarding. So again, you have to have a plan. I worked at places where we had fish and chips on the menu, and we would measure and scale out different, like, so the flour was this much, the eggs were this much, the baking soda was this much, and we'd scale it all out, and you'd have a bin that had all the different ingredients in it. And so every half hour you'd throw out the old stuff and you'd make new. That's just the way you do it. That way you don't have to worry about it. And then allergies. You don't want to use the same batter for different types of food. So if you're doing breaded fish, again, for fish and chips, you don't want to take that same breading and dip a chicken breast in it and fry that off. Well, I got a chicken breast fried. What ends up happening is there's trace amounts of the fish that can be in that batter, and so now you're taking those trace amounts and putting it on the chicken, and somebody who's allergic to fish can then get sick. Okay? We're prepping eggs and egg mixtures to following guidelines. Okay, pooled eggs. So pooled eggs are when you take a bunch of eggs, and another way I can explain this to you is working in Florida, I did a bunch of Sunday brunches. So it was the dishwasher's job. We would give them a case of eggs. We'd give them a china cap and a bucket. And so in between washing dishes and they had a little downtime, we wanted to crack all the eggs, take a whisk, and beat them up so they all go through. So there's no shells in there, and we have a big, huge 5-gallon bucket of cracked eggs. So the next morning on the Sunday brunch, we're able to just pour the eggs into the flat top, quickly make our scrambled eggs and take them out to the buffet. They have discovered that 1 egg can be contaminated and can contaminate the entire bucket. And you don't know it because you can't see it, you can't smell it, and you can't taste it. But the microorganisms, sure enough, are there. So they don't allow you to do pooled eggs anymore. So you don't want to do that. The only way you can get around that is pasteurized eggs. Okay, there's a gentleman named Louis Pasteur who came up with this method of pasteurizing things, products, milks, eggs, that kind of thing. And there are good microorganisms and bad microorganisms. So Mr. Pasteur figured out that that if you heat something to the proper temperature, you will kill the bad microorganisms and leave the good ones. So there's 2 things that it'll accomplish there. 1 is you kill the bad microorganisms, and 2, it extends the shelf life. So if you buy liquid eggs that come in a quart, they're pasteurized, which means they've been cooked and they've killed the microorganisms, so you don't have to worry about people getting sick. So rather than do the pooled eggs, you do the container of eggs that's already pasteurized. Okay? All right, so salads containing TCS foods. Okay, so TCS means time-controlled substance, all right, or temperature-controlled substance, either way. You want to make sure that if there's something that is TCS foods, that you handle it in the proper manner. TCS foods are going to be foods like chicken, dairy, beef, poultry, all those kind of things, fish, all those things that are highly perishable. You want to make sure you handle them the proper way. All right. So you want to make sure that you cook them all the way. If you're going to make a salad out of chicken, you want to cook it all the way and you want to cool it all the way and then make your salad. You do not want to take chicken that's warm, make your salad, and put it in the fridge and hope that it cools down. Microorganisms in the middle are gonna multiply, and you're gonna have problems. You want to cool it completely down before you turn it into a salad. Very important. All right. Using leftovers, if you have any leftovers and you want to use them again, if you're gonna cook them, they must go to 165. Super duper important. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is, has to go to 165 if you're gonna reheat it. All right, storing leftovers. You have to throw out any food that has been left over. Either you have to eat it, throw it away, or sell it in 7 days. You got to be out of your place in 7 days. All right. So one of the questions from yesterday's worksheet was, if you make chicken salad, how long can you hold it? The answer is 7 days. All right. You don't have to really worry about this packing juice thing. I doubt you're going to work in a place that does that. And if you do, they will have a HACCP plan. The HACCP plan is coming. You see, there's a whole video on it, and there's a whole thing on it. We're not worried about that just yet. All right, variance. Okay, so variance is a special word for something you get. It is a, how can I put this? It is documentation that says that you're able to do something that other people are not. All right. Variance is an agreement with the health department that they have gone through all the proper steps and you understand what you're doing, and therefore they'll let you do something that other people will not do. So there's certain things you have to have a variance for. So one of them is smoked goods. If you're going to smoke foods and preserve them by smoking them, you have to have a variance. And then by getting the variance, what you do is you prove to them, again, the HACCP plan, which we're going to talk about, you prove to them that you've done an analysis, that you understand where all the hazards are, that you have put systems in place to monitor those issues, and that you can handle them the right way. So in order to smoke goods, you have to have a variance, all right? Using food that has additives or preservatives. So if you're going to work at a place that makes salsa and puts it into jars, you have to have a variance for that, all right? Curing foods. So cured food, a good example of that is like corned beef. If you're going to cure corned beef before you send it out, it goes into a brine, you need to have a variance so they know that you're handling it the proper way before it goes out. Custom processing of animals. So I used to work at the Litchfield Locker, and people would shoot their deer and bring them in. In order to process those deer, which means skin them and seam them out and cut them into edible portions for the hunter, you have to have a variance. Again, systems of checks and balances to make sure. One easy one that I can tell you is ticks love to be on deer. Well, when the deer gets killed, there's no more blood going through their veins, so the ticks want to jump off. Well, you can't bring the ticks inside of the facility, so you have to make sure that you skin them before they go in the facility, and you have to treat the skin separately so you can make sure that there's no ticks going into the facility. That's a good example of this. They'll come and they'll look and see what are you doing to make sure that that's not happening. And then they'll grant you the variance based on that. All right, packaging stuff that's reduced oxygen packing, ROP. That's 3 little letters you'll need to know for ServSafe. ROP, reduced oxygen packing. That's a good example of that is the Slim Jim. You go to the grocery store and there's or the gas station and they have the Slim Jims. It's meat that's in a plastic container. That plastic sleeve, that's the ROP. That's the reduced oxygen packing. You have to have a variance if you want to do that. Sprouts seeds, back when I was your age, when I was in high school, I worked at a restaurant, and every salad that went out had bean sprouts on it, every one. They discovered that the bean sprouts had lots of microorganisms growing on them, and we never washed them because if you do, they turn all yucky. I haven't seen bean sprouts in years, so chances of you seeing them are slim to none. And then offering live mollusks, shellfish, and a display tank. So if you go to the grocery store and you see that they have that lobster tank, they have a special variance, and they had to jump through all these hoops and prove to them that they're cleaning it the right way, they're handling the salt water the right way, and they're handling the live animals that are in there the proper way, so they don't get somebody sick. All right. So again, a variance is special permission to do something that other people cannot do. Another good example of that is it is a rule in the food service industry that if you have live lobsters and they die, you need to throw them away. You cannot cook them and serve them. The reason for that is because they don't know how long they were in there and how long they were dead, and so they don't want anybody to get sick. Gulf Shrimp, which is a place that I used to work, it's a wholesale seafood company. We went through every lobster every day. So there was a lobster man. He'd pull all the pots out every day, go through every one, make sure they were all alive. If they were even close to not living, he put them to the side. They were cooked, and then they were peeled. They were taken out of the shell, and then we used them for lobster meat. Gulf Shrimp had a variance approval to do this because we went through every lobster every day. So we knew no lobster was dead for any longer than 8 to 10 hours before it was cooked. Okay. All right. TCS Foods internal temperature. All right. So again, I showed you a video, or I had you watch a video on thermometers. You want to make sure that all your food reaches the minimum internal temperature. And there's a huge list. Actually, yesterday you watched a video on temperatures you need to know. You need to use the thermometer in the manner in which the end of the thermometer is in the middle of the product. So you don't, if this is the product, you don't want to come straight down and have the probe touching the thing. You want to go at an angle so it's in the middle of the meat. You also want to check the one that's in the middle of the sheet pan, not the one that's closest to you or easiest to you. You want to pull it out. You want to go to the middle of the sheet pan and the thickest one in the middle of the sheet pan. The ones on the outside are going to be a little more done than the ones on the inside, simply because there's more heat on the outside. There's less product on the outside. There's more protection on the inside. All right. So you want to use the right size thermometer. You don't want to use a big candy cooker if you want to check a little steak. Clean and sanitize the thermometer between. If you'll see in the kitchen, we have those red buckets. I will use the red bucket to sanitize my thermometer. Insert the thermometer in the thickest part of the food, which you just talked about. Don't allow the thermometer to touch the base of the pan. Like I said, you don't want to go in straight up and down and have the thermometer touching the pan. The pan's going to be super hot. You want to be in the middle of the food. You don't want to do it the other way around. And take at least 2 different readings. I try to go from one fat one to another fat one just to make sure that we got the same reading. All right. Again, you watched the video on this yesterday, but we're going to talk about it again. So poultry, ground poultry, anything that's stuffed, TCS ingredients. So you got crab meat stuffing or that kind of thing, has to go to 165 for 15 seconds. All right. Ground meats, ground seafood, injected brine, so like a ham, 155 for 15 seconds, all right? A roast, so whether it's pork or beef or veal or lamb, 145 for 4 minutes. Now, the reason that that's 4 minutes is because the inside of that thing is going to take a lot longer because it's a roast and it's a lot bigger. So you want to make sure that you got 4 minutes, all right? Steaks or chops, pork or beef, lamb, seafood, 145 for 15 seconds. Commercially processed, ready-to-eat food, so cheese stick, French fries, deep-fried vegetables, that kind of thing you can just take out of the freezer and put into your fryer, must go to 135 internal temperature. And then fruits, vegetables, pasta, beans, that kind of thing has to go to 135 internal temperature. All right. Now, this one's tricky. ServSafe will get you on this. Got to make sure you understand the difference. Eggs that will be held hot, which means, like I talked about before, we have the Sunday brunch and you get the big bucket of eggs and you're cooking them off. Don't do that. Get the pasteurized eggs. If they're going to be cooked and they're going to put into a steam table or a buffet and they're going to be held, they have to go to at least 155 for 15 seconds. If you are making scrambled eggs and you're working in a diner and it's going right to the customer from you to the plate to the customer, 145 is the minimum. Okay, so you have 10 extra degrees to play with there. All right. Cooking TCS foods in the microwave. There's certain guidelines. I talked about defrosting in the microwave. So if you defrost in the microwave, you have to finish the cooking. If you're going to cook in the microwave, you need to cover it to prevent for drying. That doesn't really have much to do with ServSafe, but it does for cleaning the inside of the place. Rotate halfway through. Like I said before, if it's a stew or something like that, you want to stir it up. If it's not, you want to turn it because it works from the inside out and you want to rotate it. Let it stand covered for 2 minutes after it comes out and check the temperature in at least 2 places because, like I said, microwaves work from the inside out. Okie doke. What's my cooking temperature? So if I'm a hamburger patty, it's going to be 155. If I'm a chicken breast, it's going to be 165. If I'm a pork chop, it's going to be 145. If I'm shrimp, I'm going to go to 145. If I'm scrambled eggs that are going to be served right away, that's going to be at 145. If they're going to be held on a buffet, 155. Steamed rice, said it has to go to 135. All right. On your menu, if you look at our menus that I put out every day, well, you guys haven't had a chance to look at them much, but on the menus on the bottom, there is a notice. All right. It says we're going to cook all the meats completely cooked. We're going to cook all the eggs completely cooked to avoid foodborne illness. If someone says to you, I don't care what you say on your menu, I want my steak rare, I want it raw, I want it so good vet can bring it back to life, I want it red on the inside, that's fine. But it's right there for your protection. You want to put it on the menu so you tell them that I'm cooking everything all the way. And if they say they don't want that now and they get sick, that's on them, not on you. All right. A lot of people will put it on the little table tents on the thing, or they make signs, or like in this example, they put it right on the menu. All right. All right. So TCS foods that are time controlled substances. All right. So you have 6 hours. All right. So if it's first cool, you have to cool the food from 135 to 70 degrees within 2 hours. All right. So you're making a soup and you got to cool it down. All right. You have 6 hours completely to do this. All right. So the first 2 hours, you want to go from 135 to 70 degrees in 2 hours. Then you want to go from that 70 to 41, and you have 4 hours to do that. Now, if the whole process takes you 2 hours, let's say it's a small amount of stuff, and you go from 135 to 41 in a quick period of time, you're good. No big deal. You're fine. If you take longer than 6 hours, you have to bring it back to 165 and then reduce the temperature again to make sure it's under 6 hours. I worked at a huge retirement community. I was a food service director there. We used to make 12 gallons of soup, 12 gallons of cream soup, 12 gallons of clear soup every day. Now, we didn't make it that day for that day because otherwise you'd be in the weeds trying to get everything done. So we always made it in advance. So we had to cool it off. So we put it in big buckets. We put an ice wand, which is basically a big frozen stick, which I will show you at school. A big frozen stick. You put water inside, you put a cap on, you freeze the thing, and then you put your soup in that, and you stick the ice wand inside of the soup, and you can spin it around and cool it off. Again, you have to go from 135 to 70 degrees within 2 hours, and you have to go from 70 degrees to 41 within 4 hours. So a total of 6 hours. All right. All right, so we just talked about all of that. All right, so also when cooling something down, it's easiest if you cut it into smaller containers. So you can see the chef down here is taking this sauce and he's putting it into 3 different containers, rather than leaving it in one big one where it's big around and the inside it's got like a lot of temperature. If you split it up, then it's smaller and it cools a little quicker. All right. You also notice he's putting it into stainless steel bain-maries. He's not putting it into plastic. If he puts it into plastic, plastic is an insulator and it takes longer to cool down. You don't want to do that. You want to put it into a metal container. It goes a lot faster. Okay. You can add ice to your product. So let's say you made stock. You can add ice right to the stock to help cool it down. It will dilute your product, but it will cool it down faster. All right. So methods of cooling. Now there's a machine called the blast chiller. I had one at one of the places I worked, and it was very effective, but it wasn't fun to use. You had to divide everything up, like I said, into smaller containers, put it on this thing in shelves, and then once you were done, you had to put it into another container. I prefer an ice bath. All right, so an ice bath, you can see there's ice water in the bottom here. The ice water has to go up to the level of the product. Does you no good if the ice is halfway up on the container. So let's say this is my container and the ice is only going up to here, but the product goes up to here. That doesn't do me any good. If the product is here, the ice and the ice water needs to go just a little bit above that, so it's completely submerged. This is the ice wand I was talking about. It's sort of shaped like a star or like a cross. And it's a big plastic tube, and you put ice water in it and you freeze it, and then you stick it inside of your stuff, and then you spin it every once in a while. Every time you walk by the sink, you give it a spin or two, and it helps cool it down from the inside. And you can do the ice bath and the ice wand at the same time. All right. All right, food reheated for service. Like I said, anything reheated, and it doesn't matter what you're talking about. Anything that you reheat must go to 165 for 15 seconds. All right. You have to check everything on your buffet to make sure it's held at 135 or above. If it drops below that, you have to reheat it back to 165. All right. Again, we just talked about this. What's my reheat temperature? 165. You're going to reheat it. It has to go to 165, period. Reheat temperature for a hot dog, 165. Oops, I'm sorry. Commercially processed turkey breast, right? That you have to go to 165, okay?